Before Sung Jinwoo ever picked up a sword, there was a being so powerful that even the rulers, the cosmic guardians of all humanity, considered him their single greatest threat. He fought a war against beings older than civilization itself, and he lost. But losing did not stop him. Today we are breaking down the true power of Ashborn, the original Shadow Monarch. Most fans know Ashborn as the name behind Sung Jinwoo's power, the previous owner of the Shadow Monarch's throne, the being whose system eventually created the strongest hunter the world has ever seen. But Ashborn deserves to be understood on his own terms, not just as a setup for Jinwoo's story. Because before any of that happened, Ashborn was already one of the single most terrifying and tragic figures in the entire solo-leveling universe. Let's break down exactly what made him that powerful, and why even losing his war did not actually mean he lost. Layer number 1. His position in the cosmic hierarchy. To understand Ashborn's power, you first need to understand where he actually sat in the universe's power structure. At the very top of solo-leveling's hierarchy sits the absolute being, the creator entity behind everything. Below that sit two opposing forces, the rulers, who exist to protect humanity, and the monarchs, ancient beings who see humanity as something to be conquered or destroyed. Among the monarchs, who individually are powerful enough to threaten entire nations, Ashborn was not just one of them. He was the Shadow Monarch, widely regarded as one of the most feared among all of them. While other monarchs commanded fire, ice, plagues, or beasts, Ashborn commanded death itself in its shadow form, an army built from the corpses of everything he defeated. That alone put him in a category most beings in this universe never reach. But what made him uniquely dangerous was not just his title. It was what his power actually did once unleashed. Crossed Swords Layer number 2. His shadow army had no theoretical limit. Ashborn's signature ability, the one Jinwoo eventually inherits in full, was shadow extraction, the power to raise the souls of defeated enemies as loyal soldiers retaining their full strength. This ability scales in a way almost nothing else in the series does. Every powerful being Ashborn defeated in his war against the rulers became another soldier under his command. Every ruler, every guardian, every creature strong enough to actually challenge him in battle. If Ashborn won that fight, that opponent's power was added directly to his own forces. This created a compounding effect with no real ceiling. Most beings in this universe have a power level that eventually plateaus. Ashborn's potential power was tied directly to how many strong enemies he could defeat, meaning the harder the battle, the stronger his army became afterward. An enemy capable of nearly killing him in combat would, upon losing, become one of his strongest assets going forward. That is what made the rulers so desperate to stop him before his army grew any larger. Every day Ashborn survived made him exponentially more dangerous than the day before. Layer number 3. He fought an entire pantheon, and nearly one here is the part of Ashborn's story that gets understated far too often. He did not simply exist as a powerful monarch on the sidelines of some distant conflict. He led an actual war against the rulers, beings whose entire purpose is to protect all of humanity from exactly this kind of threat. This was not a skirmish. This was a war fought across the planet, with the survival of humanity itself hanging in the balance. And by every account given within the story, this was not a war Ashborn lost easily or quickly. It took the combined effort of multiple rulers working together, beings each individually powerful enough to be considered humanity's ultimate guardians, to finally bring him down. Even in defeat, Ashborn's war very nearly succeeded against an alliance specifically created to be powerful enough to stop monarchs. That is not the profile of a villain who simply got overwhelmed. That is the profile of a being who came close enough to victory that his enemies needed everything they had just to survive the fight. Crossed Swords Layer number 4. His true genius was planning centuries ahead for his own defeat. This is where Ashborn's power stops being about combat entirely and becomes something far more impressive. Knowing he might lose his war, Ashborn did something almost no other defeated monarch in this story's history managed to do. He prepared for it. Rather than simply accepting death as the end of his cause, he designed an entire system capable of identifying and forging a successor, someone who could eventually inherit his throne and finish what he started. That system needed to be subtle enough to avoid detection by the rulers who had just defeated him, patient enough to wait however long it took to find the right person, and rigorous enough to test that person until they were strong enough to actually carry monarch-level power. The system Sung Jinwoo spends the entire story interacting with, the quests, the leveling, the brutal trials. All of it is Ashborn's contingency plan, built in the final moments of a losing war, designed to outlast his own death by potentially generations. That is not the power of a sword or a shadow army. That is the power of a mind capable of planning beyond his own defeat, ensuring his cause survived even when he personally could not continue it. Crossed Swords Layer Number 5. His power lives on through Jinwoo, amplified beyond his own ceiling, and here is the final piece that makes Ashborn's true power impossible to fully separate from the story's ending. Jinwoo does not just inherit a fraction of Ashborn's abilities. He inherits the complete throne, every authority the Shadow Monarch held, and then, through his own relentless refusal to stop growing, surpasses what Ashborn himself was ever able to achieve. Which means Ashborn's true legacy is not measured only by what he personally accomplished during his own war. It is measured by the fact that his entire strategy worked. He correctly identified what kind of person could finish his fight. He built a system patient enough to forge that person properly. And generations later, that exact plan produced someone who became more powerful than Ashborn himself ever was. A war he lost personally still ended in his cause succeeding completely, just under someone else's name. So that is the true power of Ashborn. Not just a monarch with command over shadows and death, but a being who fought an entire pantheon of cosmic guardians to a near standstill, and when he finally lost, engineered his own eventual victory across an unknown number of years through the single most patient contingency plan in the entire series. He may have died before ever seeing it succeed. But everything Sung Jinwoo becomes exists because Ashborn refused to let his defeat be the end of the story. Do you think Ashborn could have actually won his war against the rulers if he had a little more time? Drop your take in the comments. Subscribe for more solo leveling deep dives every day. I'll see you in the next one.